I never really differentiate anymore, but I do share our journey with folks just to inspire them, because I feel like we're ambassadors to encourage people to become adoptive, foster and adoptive parents. So in 2008, I was working as the Wednesday's Child Coordinator for the National Adoption Center, and I was responsible for the segment that aired on Wednesday evenings with Visa Kahima from Channel 10. And we traveled throughout the tri-state area, Philly, Jersey, and Delaware, to highlight young people that were in the system waiting and looking to find their forever family. That work was very impactful, and it weighed on my heart a lot, because I came in contact with a lot of young people that I wanted to literally take home with me. I had one child at the time, my son, who was 12 years old, and I had tried to have other children, but I was unsuccessful. I did have some health challenges, and I was doing this work with the National Adoption Center. So one day, God laid on my heart to become a foster parent. I went out on FMLA to have some surgery, and while I was recuperating at home, I contacted Bethany Christian Services, and I signed up for a training. There was a previous foster parent that had cared for my daughter in the first few weeks of her life, and at the time that I picked her up, she was 4 weeks old. So she was really still a newborn. And when I first saw her, I was just overwhelmed. My heart was really full. I looked at this little baby and I'm like, wow, she's coming home with me. And I was in love at first sight and just committed to doing everything I could to take good care of her. It's so funny. She had a head full of hair. And so once, we wrapped up at the agency, one of the first stops we made was to Rite Aid to get some hair products, because I was planning to style her hair and, just give it a nice look. And my mother and I chuckled about that. The second day, I returned back to the agency, and that's when I had an opportunity to meet her parents. And that is called an icebreaker meeting, something that our agency here implemented some years ago. And the icebreaker meeting is really an opportunity to give both sets of parents the chance to meet, and for the birth parents to be able to share information that can be useful to the foster parents so that they can take care of them really well. So for my daughter's parents, one of the requests was to introduce her to music and also to take her to church. And I was committed to doing both of those things. So for the initial phase of our journey, I was fostering, and the intention was to have, her return to her parents. But after some evaluations and parenting class, which they did not do too well in, the decision was made that their rights were going to be terminated. And that was a very challenging time. I was glad to have her, but I felt the grief that the parents felt. So it was like a lot of mixed emotions. And one thing I did to counter that is, once the rights were terminated, I committed myself to making mini photo albums, because the parents would still sometimes show up to the agency. So by doing that, I was trying to just reassure them that even though she was no longer in their care, that she was being well cared for, and they could see that she was growing nicely. And I probably did that for at least the first 6 months of her life. So just little mini photo albums, and again, pictures that they could see and they could, take with them. My daughter, Bree, has just been a blessing to me. At the time, like I said, in 2008, that she came into my life, that year, I experienced quite a few traumas, including losing my maternal grandmother and my boyfriend. My grandmother passed in November, and then the very next month in December, my boyfriend was murdered here in Philadelphia. And that was a really traumatic time for me. I was really depressed. I was working at the time, and Bree was the thing that kept me going. I really didn't want to get out of bed, but I had stepped up to be a resource for her, and so she was depending on me. So she really motivated me and pushed me through a really dark time in my life.
I had a bittersweet moment when I first moved in. My mom tells me the story all the time, and I break down with it. She was giving me a bath, and I was so dirty and dingy that it just made the whole tub water just really black. And to see the expression on my mom's face that she had tears coming out them, like, I didn't understand it right then and there. And so over the years, I asked my mom, what was in that moment, what happened? After we came back from the hospital of getting checked up and everything, and I asked her, can she be my mom now? And my mom just gave this big smile from ear to ear, like, yeah, I'll be your mom now. And that I was safe. I didn't have to worry about no one trying to hurt me ever again. From then on, I knew I was safe. Did I get into trouble? Yeah, I did. But I knew that my mom had my back every step of the way. I got to have a bond with my little brother who was 19 months at the time. So to enjoy that, to have a brother to look after, was my joyous part of being a part of a family. Of the day of my graduation, after I got my diploma, took my cap and gown off, my mom said to me, when we get home, you don't have to go anywhere. I said, what did you mean? She said that we're grounded for the rest of our lives, as from hip to hip. My aunt saw me one day when they first started to foster me. And she came and saw me playing outside. And she said, she just started yelling at me, where have you been? Everybody's looking for you. Like, what's going on with you? Where are you at? So my foster mom came out and told her that I've been with them for the last 5 to 7 weeks. And she took me to my godmother's house. And I was sitting there at their dining room table. I was just so scared that everything that God gave me at that moment was about to crash. I cried. That whole time. And I asked God right then and there, I said, please don't take me away from there, because I was safe. That nobody wasn't abusing me. That I was able to eat and sleep in a bed that it was on my own, not sleeping on the floor in a kitchen. I wanted to be there. So after about 2 to 3 hours of me, just felt so much like eternity. My aunt came back to me and sat right across from me and asked me, where do you want to be? She said, I can take you home, or I can take you back to where you were. I said, I want to go back. She said, why? I told her, because I didn't want to be abused anymore. I said, I have people there that love me. And she said to me, they're not your family. I said, but they love me like that. Like I'm their family. And she said, okay, fine, I'm going to take you back. So as we were walking back to the house, and this echoes to me all the time, she said, if you ever see your mom, tell her that you never saw me. And I never seen you. And on the way back, I just couldn't stop crying not because that I was being taken away, but what I had for those 5 weeks was just going to go. That in that time, I had so much peace. I never felt the warmth of a hug or the warmth of just a kiss on your forehead to say goodnight. Or just the love and empathy that my mom showed me within those 5 weeks of something that I've longed for all my life. And it was there within that woman, this 4'2" Asian woman that had a smile that can just light you up, but she had the black woman's glare if you did something wrong. Like, yeah, I see you over there, and that was it. And I thought all of that was just going to come to an end. So that was a real bittersweet moment for me in my life, that without her, I think I would never be here. I wouldn't be at Catholic Community Services. I wouldn't be a husband or a dad. I would probably have been 6 foot under somewhere.
The first part, going from my grandma to a foster home, it was just a bit like, because I thought I was going back before I was going to actually like permanently be at a foster home. And then, I mean, I didn't really feel like it was too much troubling for me. I felt like, I mean, if I am somewhere, I should make the most of it and not like be upset about it or anything. So, I mean, every time I moved, it was really just something that happened. It's like, it's not good to always be moving around for like an entire childhood, which is what might have happened if they didn't try to step up and adopt me. But it really just came up by them just asking me one day after I was coming over when I first came back to Philly. I think really integrating with like a Hispanic family, it hasn't really been any different than how my family normally was. And I've always been like moving around and everything, it's just like people are people. I don't really think the cultural thing makes a difference other than just like what is part of their culture. But I mean, you can bond with everyone.
By the time you got her, she was 5 months old, correct?
4.5.
4.5, going on 5 months old. So that entire time until you guys were there, she did not get that. And so that could have been, obviously it is a reason for some of those delays, that not necessarily was due to any kind of medical concerns. The biggest thing I remember with her, because with her being on a feeding tube, and that is a scary thing, because they were changes, and I know that because you were certified in knowing how to care for her and the feeding tube when needed to be changed, and you had to be present for all all supervised visits when it came to the biological parents. Now, they weren't consistent, of course, but you still were willing to supervise and assist the parents. So time-wise, the impact on your life with just, you already had, Alex was here. Logan wasn't here yet. He came when
He came during that.
He came on the extension, right? Because you took Ella's newborn baby sister, little Jenny. So time-wise, you were not compensated for the back and forth and the travel to hospitals and to all early intervention services, ending up having to follow up with feeding and swallowing clinics that are only offered another hour from your home. So what was that like in trying to manage all of that?
So you have to have a very good calendar system and you have to communicate. You have to over communicate. And it is to the point that, I mean, you know, like when you're seeing a specialist at a hospital or you're going to 4 different appointments down at Philly Chop, like you need to take whatever is available. So that includes going around the other kids' visitation schedules, going around Ella's visitation schedule, going around all therapy schedules and adoption, and the doctor's appointments and the follow-ups and things like that. So it is literally like playing Tetris on your calendar.
We kind of established a line early on before we even took in Lucas that we needed to make sure that we could cover everything on our income, and the foster money would be used for, additional things, not necessarily food and clothes, but
Gas. That was probably what
not
it
even that.
basically did cover.
well, yeah, but we didn't look at it like reimbursement. We looked at it like things we would use it for, vacations. Take the family to Disney, to take them down to the shore. Sometimes little things, Christmas, stuff like that, extra stuff.
Give me something like if you were to just describe Ella and Jenny. I mean, you could describe, of course, Lucas, Alex, and Logan too, because obviously that's 5 foster children.
To sum them,
What is? Yeah.
How do you summarize that?
I know. Looking at this journey, yeah. How would you describe, like with Ella, especially because she was fragile? What is that like now? How looking back? Of course, I already know it'd be ridiculous to say you'd do it all over again. I already know you would do it 1,000 times over again. But yeah.
Start over? Sure. Do it again on top? No. It's a lot. 9 plus 9? Ooh, 18 kids?
no, she's
That's why I said start over. Yeah, do it over again from the beginning. Sure.
no more. See? See?
Describe it? I don't know. A lot of little experiences. It's like what I was talking about before with all the different firsts. It's like that but multiplied. The first time Alex walked was amazing. We didn't know if he would walk. We didn't know if Ella would walk. We knew Jenny was going to walk. She tried to walk when she was born. Wait, no, she didn't. Sorry, she laid around and did nothing for months, and then we couldn't.
I couldn't
keep her
stop
still.
her. But it's like all the unknowns, but then like all this like happiness too. Like all these like, oh my gosh, for the first time, they can communicate, maybe not verbally, but through a communication device or through sign language. They can complete a whole sentence through sign language. Or like Ella, for instance, if we say to her, like we're reading a book, Brown Bear, and she can tell you on her device what every single animal in the picture is. And it's like, she has so much in there, but just because she doesn't communicate like you and I right now, she still is very
she knows,
intelligent.
She absorbs. She.
Oh, yeah, she understands so much more than people think she does.
So much more. And like Jen, like she's coming out with 2-3 word sentences that we could barely understand one word that she was saying just 2-3 months ago, and now she's saying 2-3 word sentences.
I mean, you're giving a child a forever home. You're giving them stability. You're giving them something that they may not have ever been able to experience, right? Like, you're having kids that they have a safe place to sleep. They have someone to love them for who they are, and that's really what we strive for. We want them to have their forever home.